Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Impact of Artificial Intelligence. This is the fourth episode, and it is called Critical Thinking Skills to Identify AI, which is hosted by Religions for Peace UK. And this series explores basically how artificial intelligence is shaping our digital world and also how we can navigate it more critically and, of course, safely. So, in our previous episodes, we've covered an introduction, how AI works, and how it can influence our thoughts and even shape our behaviors. All is available on YouTube channel. This evening we go further now to how to spot AI generated content, avoid online traps, and also strengthen our critical thinking skills. So it's a great pleasure to introduce Dr. Elizabeth Milovidov. You've been here before, you already know her, but if it's the first time, let me let you know that she's a leading expert in digital safety, children's rights, law, and tech ethics. So she currently serves as head of digital safety at Roblox and has worked with many organizations like the Council of Europe, the European Commission, and UNESCO. Thank you very much for being here with us again, Elizabeth, to enlighten us with your insights and engaging presentation. So the floor is yours.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Evine. It is always a pleasure to be here and to be sharing insights and speaking with parents and caregivers and educators and just anyone who's interested in what's happening in our world today. And right now it's with AI. Thank you everyone for being here. Just really appreciate you. So, as we get started, we are going to be talking obviously about some critical thinking in AI. And again, I just want to stress we know this, but I think we kind of forget. But AI is just in technology, it is going at just an incredible pace, right? And for me, this is so exciting. And but as parents and caregivers, it's even more important for us to realize our role. And I think even though Evine did introduce me, I'm going to tell you a tiny bit more about my background. So I am a lawyer from California, and I have been living in Europe the past 30 years. And so I was working as a consultant, as a law professor, teaching children's rights, tech law and technology courses. And I think something that was really fun for me was working for the Council of Europe, which, as many of you know, is the largest international human rights organization. On the continent, and we were doing some fabulous programs on digital citizenship and digital parenting, and so there's all sorts of resources there if you're coming here from when speaking a different language. So I then went and worked at the Lego Group, where I was heading up digital child safety there, and now I just recently started at Roblox, and here at Roblox I am the global head of parental advocacy. So my role is exactly what I'm doing right now, except I do that for Roblox. This is something separate because Religions for Peace UK, we have been working together for a long while. So hopefully we will continue. But this is just a little side thing that I want to do with this community. So again, as we are talking about, you know, my background, one of the things that I find so important is giving parents and caregivers the tools, the confidence, helping people feel empowered, so that way their families can navigate this digital world. Especially now that we've got AI, and actually we've had AI for a while. You just probably weren't paying attention. In the other webinars, we discussed, what is AI? We had fun quizzes about where you find AI because a lot of people don't always realize that, even as you are writing and typing on your phone and it starts trying to auto-complete the sentence, that is artificial intelligence in right there happening for you. So, and as you're sitting there watching Netflix and it starts giving you a recommendation as to what you should see, that is artificial intelligence working for you. So there, it's already here, people. We just, are now really seeing things that are happening with Chat GPT and Microsoft Copilot and Google Gemini, and realizing all the wonderful things that we can create with artificial intelligence. But with all of that creation, of course, comes a little bit of risk. And so that's what I'm here to talk to you about today, especially trying to give you just a quick set of skills, critical thinking skills that you can use to identify AI and, keep your family safe. So let's get started. What is AI, and why should we care? So, I mean, we know that it's not, we like to think of AI as not so much well, we think of it as a robot from a science fiction movie, which is why there you kind of see like the Terminator hand. But it's really not, right? It is a branch of computer science that creates these systems and tasks that are kind of human-like, right? It's a robot, a computer creating tasks that require human intelligence. Again, I had mentioned it before, we have it in our everyday life, from Siri to Alexa to Netflix to even our social media recommendations. I mean, it's here. And AI is super powerful. But like any tool, it can have some harmful effects. And that's why we're here to talk about that. But for me, I feel like the key is to understand that AI is built by people and that it can reflect some of those biases and intentions of its creators. And so, this is our goal and our role. Our role as parent and educators is to teach our children and to teach ourselves to question the why behind what they see online. And our goal for our digital families is not to fear AI, but really to empower our children to be smart and thoughtful and responsible digital citizens as they use this wonderful new technology. I keep saying new, but we know it's not new. As we sit here and we're thinking about things like the new digital literacy, right? That is exactly what this whole topic about AI is. So when we're talking about teaching this AI literacy, teaching digital literacy, and before it used to always just be about screen time and limits and there's online predators, and now it's a little bit different. Now it is more about understanding what's real and what's not, because let's face it, people. AI is looking so incredibly real now that it's very, very difficult to tell. So this AI generated content that we see, it is really blurring the lines between what's real and what's not, between fact and fiction. And it is doing this at an incredible, incredible pace. I mean, we've never seen this before, and I think that is what is making people kind of freak out a little bit. And it's not just a problem for us adults, right? As we're seeing news and different things, it's also a problem for our children. And they need the skill of being able to understand what is AI generated content, or even just to ask questions. They need this for the rest of their lives, because the digital skills right now, this whole critical thinking part is more important than ever. So there has been a rise of deep fakes, right? And this has been pretty incredible. We're seeing it more and more. And this deep fake, I mean, so what is it, first of all? It's a video, an image or audio that has been so altered by artificial intelligence that it is very, very convincing. So, I mean, this is a really a perfect example of this, of AI's dual nature, right? So, on the one hand, it can be a really funny, harmless way to make some entertaining videos. And on the other hand, it's really a powerful tool for deception. And this is what we really are trying to hone in on, because we've seen deep fakes be used before, especially as adults. We've seen them being used to spread fake news about politicians, or to create, fraudulent financial scams, or just, to kind of cause chaos. So the whole idea is being able to understand, and spot the warning signs. So where does this whole idea of deep fake, where does it come from? So you're quite welcome. Deep comes from the deep learning, right? And that's the technology that's used to create them. And again, deep fakes can make it look like someone is saying anything, doing something that they never did. That is what is the scary part. So how can we spot deep fakes? I was going to put in a bunch of images of actual deep fakes, but I'm sure that you've seen them, and I wanted us to really get to the core of it. But if you're still interested, if you still would like to see some, you just let me know, and I will add them to this deck afterwards, which you will have. So how can you spot deep fakes? Well, if you have to really, it depends on if you're looking at a video, or if you're looking at audio, or if you're looking at images, because the creators, they really usually focus on just the visual, and they kind of forget about the audio. So you'll see things like really bad lip syncing, and that kind of always tells you that there's something going on. But as a general rule, let's go through my list here. So if you can see that, like, there's a natural eye movement, right? So the video doesn't blink, right? Or the eyes are not tracking in whatever the deep fake video is. Or if the facial expression seems sort of awkward, it doesn't seem like, I'm sitting here saying I'm so happy, and yet I'll be like that. You can kind of tell there's something going on. Poor lighting and shadows, like it doesn't just always match the background. And I was going to say, things are blurry, but what's so funny is that here it's blurry in my background too. But am I fake? No, I'm not. I'm real. Unnatural skin. The skin can appear, way too smooth, or just have a strange texture. So those are just, some quick things to think about. But I think even beyond that is something that's easy to always consider is, you're sitting there checking the source. And that is something that you're going to always be thinking about. But as again, if we talk about this visual bit, you try to pay attention to the details. Try to pay attention to movement and things like that, because technology is getting better, but still there are some inconsistencies that are a pretty good indicator that what you're looking at is not quite the right thing. So here we were talking about visual deepfakes, and so then, as I said, there are also audio, right? So that whole idea of you're hearing something. If you see them both together, it's like there's a mismatch, right? That there's kind of like crazy lip syncing. Again, that sort of robotic voice, which you can hear a lot. And that is because it's just auto-generated voice and text. Sometimes there might be some strange background, and I'm saying that as I hear my fan going on in the background. I'm like, no, no, it's like it's inconsistent hums or strange digital noises, and also inconsistent body language, right? So the person's movements, they seem like there's something wrong. And I think here you need to sort of trust your instincts as you're looking at these things or listening to these things, and say, hey, there's something's not quite right here. And always, and I think this is probably, again, what I was saying for both audio and visual, is this idea to check the source. Where is it coming from? Is it just popping up on some random social media site, some random user? If that's the case, how did that user get that information from whatever the latest news or the buzz that they've apparently gotten and that they're now sharing? So it's really that sort of idea of checking the source. And so I think what's really important is that we've all seen this, right? We've all heard about it, about deep fakes in the real world. This is what's so unfortunate, and I'm giving you just a quick examples of how we see it in the real world, but also how it can affect you, where you will receive something that is an email or a video or something to that effect that is a scam or something that's political. So again, some actual examples. We had there was a deep fake audio of a CEO that was actually used to authorize a fraudulent wire transfer, right? So that was pretty intense. Political candidates, we've seen a couple of those where, the candidate says, well, my opposing candidate did this and that, or perhaps it's even something about the political candidate themselves that is completely untrue, and they're sitting there admitting to something. Celebrity impersonation, I think one of the most famous ones that I saw was uh, it was Barack Obama, and it was not Barack Obama. It was an actor pretending to be him. So, I mean, obviously, celebrities and impersonators can do all of these things so easily, and it does go viral, and it is funny. Oh, there's another really good one with Tom Cruise. Actually, I think that's probably the one that they're referring to here. That is just so interesting. Um, Harassment. So AI used to create non-consensual fake images and videos. This is pretty hardcore. This is probably the newest turn of AI and what can really, really go wrong here. And that is this idea of those types of images, those types of videos that you can really imagine without me having to say. And now they're using artificial intelligence to create the images. So, I one hand, it's great. It's no longer real children and real women being abused. But on the other hand, it's still, abusive use of technology and of images and things like that. So it really is a high stake problem. And there's also real personal harm, right? If you also are taking, like, for example, my face and putting it on somebody else's body and then using harassment AI, those are some of the harmful things that AI can do. And actually, I won't say AI, I will say bad actors who are using AI, what they are doing. So this whole idea that I really want you to think about, and it's for everything. I would love it if you are having conversations, having conversations with your kids about everything that's happening in the digital age, whether it's online video games or how they're using social media. What is AI? How do they feel? I mean, and especially with our young people, because one of the things that I have seen, I didn't include it here, but one of the things that I've seen that has just been rising recently, the past couple of weeks, is young people using AI as therapy, using chatbots to help them out because they feel like they don't have a trusted adult, or, it's just as good as going to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And it's not quite the same thing at all. So I think that is something you should also add on the list about talking to when you're talking to your kids about deep fakes, talk to them about AI in general. So what are we going to do? So again, the most effective way of teaching any of these skills is, you do it together, right? You do show by do. You don't just tell them what to do. You show them what to do. If there's a viral video or something that pops up or a deep fake that comes up, use that as a teaching moment. Take a step back and say, okay, let's figure out a way to talk about this. And it's not a lecture. You are not going to be yelling at them and say, this is why you shouldn't have social media and this is why I'm taking it away. No, 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 that's not going to help. You are trying to teach them how to behave when you're not in the room, right? And so that's why you're going to be modeling that good behavior. You're going to ask them questions, and this is again that critical thinking part, saying, "Huh, what does this seem real to you? Who do you think made this, and what might be fake about it?" Get them to ask questions too. And, after you're asking, you can also say, well, what do you think? What other kinds of questions should we be asking about this video, about this content? And I think it's also important to focus on feelings, right? To sit there and actually point out how this video might be harmful, how it could be intentionally misleading, and discuss that. What do you think the effect is on the people who are seeing this video? What do you think the effect might be on the people who made the video? Really, you can explore, and you don't have to have the answers to these questions yourself. You just have to be able to, pose the question, explore this with your children, with your young people, with your community. Um, and again, this whole idea, we call it the pause and zoom method, right? Where you encourage your kids, just pause that video. Let's just take a second here. Let's really zoom in and let's, look for those red flags. Let's look for the things that we can see that we're talking about. So that is something that I try to encourage to do with my own children as well. Next slide. Oh yeah, because I didn't say my own children, they're 15 and 18. And even though they've had me as their mom talking about online safety, forever since they were born, they still are getting into, I won't say trouble, but still challenging situations because, everyone's curious. Everyone wants to know what's out there and what is this and what is that. And so the biggest weapon that I have is conversation and critical thinking, obviously. But just really staying with them on those conversations, asking them, how was your school today? How was your online day? Those types of things. Because information is power, right? And that's information that you're getting, but also information that we're getting when we're talking about AI and technology. So I think that the skills that we're talking about, they're not just for deep fakes, right? This is like, this critical thinking skill and asking questions. This is universal. It is a universal defense against misinformation, against all sorts of, the icky things that are out there where people are just clicking and saying, "Oh, I believe it," and it's just then next thing you know, the world is flat and we're just trying to figure it all out. So I think we need to realize that AI does make it easier to mass produce content, to go faster, but it makes it easier to mass produce fake content. And so we really need to use those critical thinking skills more than ever because there is just so much out there. And again, I wanted to make sure something that I always try to do when I'm talking about things in the digital world is to sort of take the technology out of it for a second. So if we weren't talking about AI, if we weren't talking about, radio and movies and trying to discover, is it real, is it not? We had to evaluate our sources in the past as well. We would evaluate sources in with newspapers and TVs and books, right? Think about when you yourself were writing papers in high school or in college, and the teacher would always say, don't just use one source. You're not going to just go on today's equivalent of looking in the encyclopedia and writing your whole paper based on that. You're going out and you're doing research, you're checking what the other sources are saying. It is the exact same thing in the online world and with AI, but we have a tendency to forget these things because everything is so easy and you can just ask Google. And I think you need to go a little bit further than that. So I think, again, this important idea is that generative AI, it can be so convincing for words, for images, for data, that it really is difficult to distinguish, what is human created content. Although there are, a few signs. So for example, if you're using ChatGPT a lot, there are signs that you're using ChatGPT. So again, think about that and share that with your children as well. That it reads very much like a robotic script. ChatGPT has a tendency to always talk in threes. These are the three things you need to know. Or it will say something like, I don't know, AI is power. AI is ubiquitous. AI is the future, right? That is how it speaks, and after a while, you're able to recognize those signals. That again, it is getting better at again trying to sound more and more human-like. So as much as I can give you some of the tools today, technology is trying to be even better so that way you don't notice it and you don't know. But we're still going to keep doing what we can. So, how can I even help you figure this out? I'm going to give you a little toolkit. So, this is a little test, and some people call it crap. I prefer to call it crepe. And it has two A's, but I'm going to call it crepe and I'll explain why. But this is just sort of an easy method. It's just a simple way for you to evaluate any source of information, right? And it's just, of course, using the acronym where each letter is going to stand for a key question to ask. And it's just a great little model to help you teach your children and yourselves, how to know if something is real or not. So let's take a look. You guys are wondering, what in the world is she going to actually spell out? Well, it's not crap, it's crepe. So the C, that is for current, right? So that's the first question that we're going to be asking. Is the information up to date? Is it current? Really? Okay. Because this is so important when things are fast changing and, fast changing fields like technology and medicine. It's just, it goes so quickly. And using outdated information can be just as bad as using false information, right? Because it's outdated, it's no longer reliable, in fact. So a check of the date might be the easy first step. Something that was true today, let me say that again. Something that was true a year ago may not be true today, right? That's just the way it goes. So that the actionable tip here is checking the publication date. Is the information recent enough for your topic? And so again, this is something that you can use for as you're looking at the latest topic online, or as your children and young people are doing research, something that they can also use to help. It's all about literacy, right? Digital literacy, media literacy, AI literacy, which is always the core components for critical thinking. Okay, so what is the R? So for this R, it's relevance, right? And so this is kind of like a fit test. Is this the right fit? If you're searching for, how to make a pizza, and you get a resource that's something like, a pizza for a five-star recipe for a five-star restaurant, that might not be what you need, right? If you're a beginner, you want something else. So you have to sit there and realize, is this relevant? Does this fit my need, my topic? Is it relevant for what I'm looking for? So why does that matter? Because, just because information is accurate, it doesn't mean that it's useful. So again, my example with the pizza recipe, just because we get a great recipe for pizza from a five-star restaurant doesn't mean that it's going to be useful to me, because I don't have those wonderful, expensive ingredients to make my pizza margarita. So, a source written for experts might be too complex for a child's school project. And sometimes I don't know if there's any educators on the line. I know for myself, being a professor, that sometimes you can tell when the kids are using, resources that are way too complex, because there's no way they could ever write in that manner. So it's the same thing with what we're looking for online. So the A, this is where they spread it out and use it for authority and accuracy, but I'm going to use it for both. So, who said it? Who's the author? What are their credentials? Right? That's the authority. That is the person. If you can't trust the person who's giving you the information, then, why you can't even trust the information itself. So, the accuracy part, is it true? Is it factual? Again, even if you can trust the person, but then you're like, okay, but now I need to know, is this accurate? Is this factual? Maybe that person, has gone off the rails since they first published this. So it's really just checking. And you should understand that this matters because an article by a reputable journalist or a scientist is obviously more credible than a random blog post. And it's the same thing with the information that you're receiving that could be AI generated. If it's from a reputable source as opposed to, just some social media user, that's something to look at. Some of those actionable tips again is, checking to see, do they have expertise on this subject? Are we citing the evidence? Can you cross-reference the fact with other trusted sources? You can see that on some of the AI content. In fact, if you're looking closely enough, you will sometimes see where they tell you that this is created by AI, or this is AI generated content. And that's when you know, okay, this is not perhaps for me, or this is not fit for purpose for my needs right now. So that P, what is the P? P is purpose. Okay, nice little, very simple, understanding the purpose. That can really help you evaluate the objectivity of the source. So again, if we're looking at that AI video, we're looking at that deep fake, that AI text, what is the intent behind this information? Is it really just to give information? Is it to inform us? Is it to persuade? Is it to entertain? Is it, is it, do we think it's to cause like some financial scams or cause some turbulence in different worlds? I mean, this is why these things matter because content that's created to persuade you, like an ad where you all of a sudden you want that big piece of chocolate cake, that is not the same as content that's created to inform you, like a news report talking about the benefits of chocolate cake. Can you tell that I want some cake? But still, so it's just you have to really kind of understand this, and it's okay for a source to be biased, okay, as long as you recognize that bias too. So you're teaching your children, you're teaching yourselves to look for that why. And this is, again, part of the critical thinking. You're helping them to really just become more aware of the influence that can shape the media that they consume, not just AI generated media, but all the media. So again, the actionable tip here is to look for those biases. Is the author trying to sell you something? Is the author trying to push a political agenda? Is the author trying to, destroy a celebrity's reputation? Or is it just to present some facts? So those are some of the things that you're going to look at. And so there you go. There's my E, so I can make it a crepe. So my E is for ethics. As a lawyer, I just am always trying to stress ethics in the digital age, ethics in everything that we're doing, because really there's so much more to it, right? It's this as AI becomes more and more powerful, we have to go beyond just this sort of conversation about, the technology and how do we use it. It really must become something a bit more philosophical as we talk about, how we are using AI. What are we using it for? And again, I think this is a really important time for you to talk with your children and young people about AI because it's not going to stop. Okay. I know you're thinking, oh, I was kind of hoping that we could put a pause on it. AI is here to stay, but we need to figure out ways to use it ethically. As you're seeing, if you're reading the news, you're seeing things with OpenAI, and again, the therapy chat bots. And it's like, is that an ethical use? Some of these companies that are creating chat bots for children, is that an ethical use? I mean, these are the questions that we have to ask ourselves and then put guardrails if we find that the answer is no, that it's not an ethical use. So this E for ethics is very important for me because, again, critical thinking, it's not just me teaching you, how to spot the fakes, how to look for the red flags, what looks off, but it goes beyond that. It is about understanding the implications. It's about understanding that even if we do allow these deep fakes or this AI generated content to go through, what does this mean for us? What does this say for us as people, as communities, as a world? So AI in and of itself, it is really raising some big questions right now about our society, about our privacy, about our future, and it's also, about who has it and who doesn't. Having access to AI is just I mean, it's absolutely incredible. And those who don't have access, what's happening with them when we start talking about the digital divide, and again, the ethical implications there. So we need to have these ongoing conversations amongst ourselves as adults, as a community, and of course with our children. So this ethical challenge, I wanted to just point out a couple of challenges that come to mind for me, and if you have any others, please put them in the chat. Um, but the first one is this whole idea that AI is it's a system that learns from the data, right? And when we sit there and think, who is inputting the data, right? If that data is biased, the AI will be too. So I'm giving you a story now. A few years ago, maybe I don't even know how many, 15, 20, Google was doing something at one point and they were inputting images. And you could go onto Google and you could type gorilla. And I lie to you not, it's very offensive, but images of African American men would pop up. And there was obviously a problem with the algorithm. But when you sit there and realize that the people in Silicon Valley who are training these machines do not necessarily look like all of us, do not perhaps have our linguistic abilities or able to understand or go traveling around the world, it can be a very biased model that represents one view. Yes, I'm American, but I'm also French. And so when I sit there and think about so many of these systems being created in the United States, you can also see that there might be an American bias to that sort of information that's being inputted. So these are questions I think that we all need to ask and to talk about, because the data, like, again, if it's the data is biased, and then the AI will be too. And let me give you another example. This is something that I used to do with my law students to show them about what bias is. I would have them all on their different phones, and they came from different countries, is to look on Google. And here we were sitting in France, and I would have them write the French president, his name is Macron, and I would say, Macron is. And then the rest, Google would auto populate the answer. I can promise you that depending on where they were using Google, or depending on what countries they were from, or what the algorithm had already been feeding them, they would get a different response. Macron is the president of France. Macron is not a good guy. Macron is, completely different things. Macron is married to a woman who's 25 years older than him. Things like this, or I don't know if it's 25, but still. So it can change, right? Data can change. The bias is there. So here is another example, an AI hiring tool, right? So we've seen about this where recruiters and employment agencies are using AI, and it can unfairly screen out female applicants. But not only that, it can unfairly screen out people who have different sounding names. Again, when I was in France, I would remember teaching some of my students, and they would come up to me and ask me for help with their resumes because their names were not French sounding, as they were foreign students. And they were like, there's a bias against this. Even this is without even AI. This is just people looking at their names and saying, oh my goodness, no. So there is a lot out there where, it can be, but that bias can be filtered out immediately. I'm sorry, the AI can filter out people immediately because of that bias. So again, you have to sit there and think, why is this system giving me this result? Would this be fair? Is this fair to everyone? What do we think we can do? And I know these seem like overwhelming questions because these are really big questions, right? But I really want you to be aware of it and to be thinking of it in your own jobs, in your own business environments, in your own applications as you're talking with your children, et cetera, because it is a very real issue. Another ethical challenge is this whole idea of privacy and ownership. So, privacy is really, it's a concept that kids are just like, yeah, whatever. But AI is making this really concrete because every time your child uses a new app, there are questions that they should be asking about, where's their data going? How is AI going to be using this? And this is really a chance for you to teach your children about digital footprints. And so a digital footprint, in case you don't remember, this is like, footprints on the sand. Any place that you go online, you are leaving footprints. It's just that simple. You can think that you're erasing them. You can think you're going into incognito mode and nobody sees you, but those footprints are still there. So we need to teach ourselves and our children about that and the value of your personal information. And I know this is difficult because even with my own children, I say, yeah, but think about your privacy. And you know what their response is? Oh, mom, who cares? Google has everything on us anyway, or Apple knows everything already. To a certain extent, they're not wrong, but that doesn't mean they have to continue in that same way. Oh, and just a little side thing as we're talking about privacy. For those of you with children, please think again about all those photos that you're sharing on social media. think again about how AI is a powerful tool. And so even when if you're a Mac user like I am, that when you take pictures on your iPhone and then it syncs automatically to the cloud, and there's little AI running around and it's saying, is this a picture of you, Elizabeth? Is this a picture of your son? Is this? And so it's using that facial recognition. It's huge, it's powerful. And when you upload pictures of your children, that facial recognition, it can be used, those images can be used to what's it called? When you advance the age, so that way you can have a projection of what that person's going to look like at 25, at 30. And yes, sometimes there's all sorts of funny things on social media. What would I look like as an 80-year-old? Or what would I look like as a 15-year-old? But again, think about that as you put your face out there, as you give that personal information to a database. So these are all just questions that I want you to think about for your privacy, for your ownership. Who owns that data? Who owns the information that you're giving them? What are they going to do with it? And it's something that I always tell my children is that if it's free, it means you are the product. You are what is being sold. It is not the wonderful app. So this whole idea now is you're going to be thinking growth mind here. I know you all wanted to shut down and say we're done with AI, but no scarcity mindset. It is growth mindset. We are going to teach our children to ask some questions, to ask what if, and to ask them why, instead of just, accepting the answer, right? We are going to use AI as a tool, and it is not something that's going to replace their thinking. Some people say, but Elizabeth, what about, using AI for math and problem solving. And say these are the same questions that we said before with calculators. Giving a child a calculator, what is this going to do? Well, they still have to understand, the basic math behind it, right? They can use a calculator later, but we still have to teach them the essentials. And it is the same thing with AI, with creativity, with problem solving. We still need to teach our children how to write before we just let ChatGPT write their letters for them. They need to understand sentence structure, subject, verb, direct object, before we let them loose. And we need to get them to kind of ask the right questions. We need those thoughtful questions. We need them to have those precise questions. And it's not always about, getting an answer. It's not always about arriving to that destination. It is the journey, and it is the journey of asking the right questions. If you think about it, again, I'm a lawyer, and in law school we had this Socratic method, and that was based off of the philosopher Socrates. And how would he teach? By asking questions. And I tell you, it was very painful as a law student to have the law professor asking you question after question after question, and he's just pulling you along this trail until you get to the right answer. I mean, absolutely amazing stuff, but you have to know how to ask good questions, and not just getting the answer. And always, always, you're never going to hear me say this enough about staying involved, being a co-partner, a co-collaborator with your children on their digital journey. You are learning with them. You are showing them how excited you are about all of this as well. So you're going to be encouraging them to experiment, to build, to be curious. And the best way to do all of this for the future is by giving them a toolkit, giving that critical thinking toolkit so they can get things done. You have some things to do here. You are going to have some easy going open ongoing dialogue, right? That's like the first thing. And you are going to, make this just a normal topic of conversation. It's never just that one-time lecture. The other thing, you're going to practice the crap or crepe test together. You're going to use it on a news article, a social media post, even a video, something that you see. Give it a try. Third thing I would love it if you do is engage with AI together. Try that. Use creative AI to generate a funny story or a picture, or just even sit down with ChatGPT, Perplexity, Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini. There are now so many, and just play around, ask some questions, and see how far it goes. Something that you will find amazing with your children is, especially with ChatGPT, if you ask it a question it starts trying to humanize itself, and it will say, and it will start flattering you as well. So it will say things like, "Great question, Elizabeth. Let's go into that a bit further." So I think by doing this with your child, you can say, "Isn't that kind of creepy? The computer is telling me that I'm doing a great job. It's not a person. It's just trying to act like one." And again, lastly, the fourth thing is setting those family rules. And stress this to set them together, to find out, what do they need AI for, to find out what tools might be appropriate for their schoolwork. Yeah, it is possible that they can use it, and what things are absolutely off limits, complete no-nos that you don't want them to be thinking about, in using AI for. Okay, so like I said, there's just some simple little actions that you can do this week, in no time like the present. And then last but not least, I just really want to stress is that critical thinking is critical. What's really funny, Evine, we could do these webinars forever on different topics in the digital age, whether it's social media, online games, AI. And I will always be talking about the same thing, and that is critical thinking. If we do not, I mean, it is so critical in our use of anything digital today, that if we bypass this important step, we are really doing ourselves a disservice. So I want you to walk away from this conversation knowing that AI, yeah, it is changing. It's changing the world, but it is not going to be a replacement for our most human skills. So keep that thought going, that positivity about humanity and our empathy and compassion, um, the ability to think critically, to ask questions, and to just use sound judgment. This is more important than ever. So be that person in the room that's saying, let's think about this. Let's crepe this, if you will. And then also, you are the most important person, and you are the most important guide in your child's digital journey. So again, I want to thank everyone for joining. I'm going to just close out my slides in case you have any questions, but just to realize that the most powerful technology is not AI. It is it is us. It's our human mind, right? And it's by teaching our children to think critically, we are making sure that they can handle anything that the future throws. So again, let's open up for questions, and we are going to make sure that you have plenty of the resources. We'll be putting things in the chat for you. So let's go. Are there any questions? And if there's no questions, that's okay too.
Not sure that's that much of a question. That it's almost like a half an observation, half
I
question.
like an observation. I'll take it. And my observation is that I love your eyeglasses. That's my
Thank
first observation.
you. Um, when we say that we want to accompany our children on the way to, to make sure that they're safe, actually, the first thing is if they are younger or not so young, as you say, your 15-year-old and your 18-year-old there, and how safe it is for them to just kind of launch out on themselves. The One of the things that I have observed by being a parent, it is that I don't know about the new technology as much as my child, and
Right.
in some ways they trump me
Yes.
in knowing, and because they are quicker and more responsive, and it's their language. It's very easy for me to lapse into, okay, so I don't know as much as you do, but still wanting to contribute
Yeah.
what is safe and what is not. So that is not that's an observation. But the
It's
one
an excellent observation, Cindy, and I want to jump in if I can, because you're not alone. And that is for all of us, myself included. Cindy, my boys are out there outpacing me too. You're listening to me talk, and some of the things I'm sharing are some of the things that they've shared with me. And so the number one way to find out about like what's going on and to stay current is to let them show you. Just say, hey, I've been hearing so much about some of this AI stuff. What are you using it for? What are your friends using it for? How do you think I could use it?
Yeah, it's because it's important to let them also know that they are also in the driving seat. Um, What's the
For a certain extent, yeah, that they're in the driver's seat, but just like with a learner's permit, you're still the a trusted adult sitting there. And even if you don't know how to drive, you can sit there and say, that's a truck coming and that's a stop sign. You need to stop. And so I think you need to realize that that even without having super knowledge about technology, you still have expertise. You are an adult, you are mature, you are wise. Children, when we talk about neuroplasticity, we talk about their brains, they are not fully developed. For me, the number was 23. I was doing a talk on Saturday and I had a child psychologist push back and say 26. And I said, wow. This is why college kids are jumping off of roofs, because it's like, yeah, it's still funny. It's still fun. They're not thinking.
right?
So we've got time. And then what was the second thing, Cindy? What was it? Because that was a great observation.
It's more from the side that I think you're best positioned to answer that question because it's the critical thinking that we are talking about. It's more like when, almost like as if you are finding facts for your case in a law case. That several things that you mentioned. One is the what is their intent of whatever's generated, and when you come up to it, you see who is asking it, so who owns it, and what do they want to do with either what
Yes.
they're putting out or what they're getting from you. So that interaction between um my son works in AI.
Oh, this is wonderful. You're our inside source.
He just says that by going off to play a game, you have to pay them to play the game, but they are actually getting your information
Of course.
from their use. So it's a very commercial thing, and I'm not sure that that is apparent in us trying to tell people we're not trying to stop them from new technology
Hmm.
or new information. It's just that if they give it over uh, and just accept what's given them, or accept that when you are asked things, you don't ask questions and you just give. Like all these wonderful coupons and whatnot, that they're just slopping up all your information that you
Yeah.
have all of thereafter. So how do we resist that urge to just, okay, I don't know, I sit in front of the computer, you tell me,
Yeah.
and I will believe you.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. For me, it was there was another part to that too, and that was just this idea of giving all that information away, right? And so that was what I had mentioned earlier when I was saying if it's free, that means that you are the product, right? And I think some of the small steps that we can already take to kind of reduce that effect is we go on websites, and I don't know about you, but I know that I will sometimes just accept cookies accept quickly just to get there faster because it takes more time to say no.
Uh,
And so it's things like that that we have to, sit there and get into the habit of just saying no, 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 and really guarding our own personal information as much as we can. Now, to your second question, wait, what was the second part of it?
how do you how do you come up with the resistance that
Oh,
because
right.
about something that we don't know, that you just accept it and don't know how to ask further?
Yeah, yeah. And I think there is it it goes back to the same thing that our parents used to say to us. If everybody's jumping off a bridge, are you going to go jump off the bridge? It really is the same sort of thing. If everybody's clicking on this website, can you at least think about it and just sit there and think what is driving everyone to this? And I think that's what's pretty interesting because if we do that, if we ask those questions for things like, why is everyone watching TikTok videos? What's happening there? Why is everyone, people on Instagram or on Pinterest. Why? What's the interest? And then you can really have that conversation. Well, how do you feel after being on TikTok for 25 minutes, an hour, or 2 hours? How do you feel after being on your computer? And then they're going to draw some conclusions themselves that it's not always the healthiest. And I think that's the way, just sort of asking questions and always, again, linking it back to your feelings, to that human aspect and human element of being online because we don't want to lose our humanity in all of this and just, yes. Yes, and just keep going and just be entertained and just, take what is being fed to us. I also find in my last little tip, and I'm going to give it over to Evine so she can close us out. My last little tip, Cindy, is films. When you are watching movies and things like Black Mirror or whatever that's talking about the future, use those too as teaching them and say, how real is this? Could this happen? Especially your son's in AI. My goodness, there is so many great topics in AI, and just get him to really dive into it. And in fact, one thing I'm going to put in the chat for you, Cindy, that you can counter your son. It's called the Center for Humane Technology, and they are the same people that did that wonderful movie called The Social Dilemma,
Yeah.
and which is something, that I think everybody should see if they haven't seen it. And it's just reminding you about like data, right? About like where your stuff is going. And so they are now getting more and more involved in this whole AI issue as well. So I think there are a lot of people and a lot of things that are out there that are trying to help.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
You're quite
I
welcome.
would like to thank everyone who attended the session this evening, and also to Elizabeth for all the tips and again a very great presentation. Again, thank everyone for joining, and I hope to see you again.